While we have got you, Sebi, we listened to Football Americas this week, a very interesting conversation between yourself and Herc about Christian Pulisic, another player who's had an official presentation with his new club, this club being Milan at this time, as we take a look at his stats for the last season in all competitions. We're going to invite Gab Marcotti in here, but I will start with you to back yourself up. To start here, Sebi, because you guys gave a grade to him. You gave him a B+ for his time at Chelsea, and it felt as though, watching you guys on Football Americas, you were talked down from giving him an A.
Well, I think I made it pretty clear. If you're going to give somebody, and this is somebody who did not get a lot of A's during my school, but what I understand it takes to get an A is mastery of the subject. And I don't think we can look at Christian Pulisic's time either at Chelsea and say that he mastered that club and becoming a starter there. And I don't think we can honestly say that he mastered the Premier League. Yes, there were moments of brilliance, but they were moments. They were not consistency. And to master something, you must be consistent. So for that reason, I stayed away from giving Christian Pulisic an A. But when you look at everything else, you got to give this guy a passing grade. You got to give him a B. He becomes a historic player in American soccer, winning not just a Champions League, but contributing, playing the final 30 minutes of that game. People used to always say, Thomas Tuchel didn't trust him. He trusted him with the Champions League final on the line. Of course, the goals against Real Madrid in the run. Those are heights never even approached by an American player before. So I can't give him an A, but I'm giving him a very solid B for all that he did accomplish in his 4 seasons at Chelsea.
Is there any chance we can get realistic here? I mean, what has it got to do with where he comes from? Whether he was any good or not? It's got nothing to do with it. Nothing. How is it a pass when the club have lost 50 million on from when this guy signed to when he left? Nobody's going to argue he's not got ability, but if we're going to answer the question of was he a success at Chelsea, it's a big fat no. No chance. And this classic quote, I love this classic quote. Well, he didn't play enough. He didn't get enough time. Please tell me whose fault it was he didn't get enough time if it wasn't his. Injuries, yes. Playing time, who's that down to? Did he not get playing time because he was so good that they just didn't like him? I don't care how good you are, you're not playing. Come on, we've got to be realistic. He failed. Does he have talent? Absolutely 100%. Will he do well at Milan and reboot? I'm sure he will. I think he will. But we've got to be realistic. Come on. He was a bust at Chelsea. Seb?
I can't say he was a failure when he won a Champions League, Stevie. Come on. I can't say he was a failure when he won a Champions League. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. You're not taking into context any of the reality of the money. You say, oh, he went down 50 million. He's got a year left in his contract. That's why the numbers are where they are.
So that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. They lost 50 million on him, but that doesn't matter. The same as where he comes. What's where he comes from got to do with anything? How whether he passed or not, or he was good or not. I mean, come on, you've got to be realistic, Seb. And yes, did he win a Champions League medal? Yes. But he was other than the first 6 months, he was never anywhere close to being first on the sheet. Not close.
I wonder if that had something to do with the fact that he was never a favorite of any of the managers. Remember, Maurizio Sarri was in charge when he was bought from Dortmund and said he didn't even know who he was. That's a guy who time after time didn't get the opportunity from managers, Stevie. Come on.
I can imagine the coaches in the coaching room going, right, I'll tell you what, this guy Pulisic's doing fantastic, but you know what? I don't like him. He's not playing. We don't like him. You're not playing. Yeah, right. Come on.
All right. Go on, Gab.
I just want to say, like, I think ultimately when when Sebi points out he only had a year left to go, and that's why the transfer fee was low. Sure, but he only had a year left to go because Chelsea didn't extend his contract, and the reason he didn't extend his contract is because he was on huge wages. He's making, he was making right around $13 million a year, 13 to 15 million, which is an enormous amount of money for the minutes that he was actually on the pitch. So I think in the end, I mean, again, I don't know Christian Pulisic that well, but I know him well enough to know that if he were here, he would not be giving himself a B because he played a role in Chelsea winning the Champions League. I mean, he's been here at Chelsea for a long time, and it didn't work out. And different managers changed, and the story didn't change. And a lot of it is injuries, but a lot of it is also he wasn't able to impose himself against other players in a way that's warranted by his wages.
Can I just add, though, that while Kay said the general consensus yesterday was a C, that was Frank's consensus. I was going D, and I'll speak for Ali here. Ali was going incomplete. D is still a passing grade. I won't fail Christian Pulisic because, as Sebi may have mentioned, I think a lot of his failures had to do with the fact that nobody's quite sure who signed him in the first place, which I mentioned yesterday. And so I think... if we're sticking with the school theme, his professors had something to do with how poor his grades were. And so I don't feel him as a result, but I don't give him a C, and God alone knows how you give him a B.
Let me speak to Professor Salazar once more. Is this a make or break move ahead of the 2026 World Cup for him, Seb?
Absolutely. There were smaller clubs to go to for Christian Pulisic. There were teams that were interested in him that were not the profile of AC Milan. This is the last chance saloon at a big club, at a significant club. I accept what the guys say. He didn't excel at Chelsea, right? He didn't prove that he could lock down a starting spot in a big league on a big team. Here's that chance again. And I think it's perfectly set up for him this time. Pioli has said that he wants him. There's not one, there's not two, there's three positions, as you see it right there in the 4-2-3-1, that he could very easily slot into. So this is a perfect situation for Christian Pulisic. This is the opposite of Chelsea. I think here you run out of excuses. We're going to find out if he's really elite enough, not to be the best American ever, but to lock down one of these spots on one of the best teams in the world, which for players from our region is just not something you see very often.
Gab, how important is it for him to get off to a good start in terms of the fans? How much time will they give him? How patient are the Milan fans?
The Milan fans were very patient last year with Charles de Ketelaere, who, in some ways he could end up replacing in terms of what he was supposed to be rather than what de Ketelaere actually produced. So they only really started turning on him in the new year. So I think they'll be very patient with Pulisic. I think Pulisic is a far more dynamic player. I think they love that intensity. I think they love the fact, too, and this has gone kind of unremarked by a lot of people, he took a big pay cut. He really bet on himself. And this speaks a lot, I think, to Christian Pulisic's character. He could have sat on his backside. He could have earned his $13 million next season. And then he could have wandered off to any other club as a free agent and written his own ticket. That would have been the easy way out. Instead, he took this deal. He took this big pay cut over what he was making now. And he said, look, I want to improve as a player. And no, it wasn't going to cost him the national team. You think Greg Berhalter's not going to call him if he's on the bench at Chelsea? Of course you'll call him. So it wasn't... He could have really taken any really easy way out, but he chose not to do that, and I think that says a lot about Pulisic. So coming in with the right attitude, I think we might see him possibly playing off the striker in the number 10 role, because obviously down the left you have Rafael Leao. You can also play Leao down the middle, of course. There's a variety of roles that he can use, and I think it was important to him to get the deal done relatively early so that he can have a full training camp at Milan.
Well, just taking a look there at that possible starting 11. But one thing we did want to show you all is what he had to say in his presentation about the pronunciation of his last name.
Obviously, being of, Croatian heritage, I think Pulisic is always correct from that point of view, but obviously growing up in America, it was always pronounced Pulisic, so that's just what I'm used to. But both I'm very much okay with. Pulisic, they said actually now we are quite close to Croatia, so I think Pulisic is okay.
Seb, are you horribly confused now?
Hey, I've never been happier that ESPN lost the rights to U.S. soccer games. I don't have to worry about that anymore. I think they're going to go back and look through all of our old tapes and start to get out the Sharpies. Yeah, we've been saying it wrong apparently for a long time. But I know one thing: I know Gab has been saying it right, and I know he's very, very happy about that.
Yeah, Gab, you stood firm with your pronunciations throughout all these years.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a weird one. You know, we have it ultimately. You know, people told me, and I believe Sebi when he says, "Oh no, this is what Christian called himself." Well, you know, that's great. If now he's happy with the other one, I mean, he's right. Croatia is just hips, you know, just a short hop from Milan, and maybe he'll go visit his old relatives, and they'll remind him that it is, and as he knows, it is Pulisic. So it's a good way to settle in there, I think.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.